Welcome once again to the 2021 virtual clinic series hosted by Smarter Team Training and Explosive Performance. I'll actually tell you, Kevin Boyle has done an incredible job of putting this together, getting the technology stuff set up, and all the presenters have been outstanding so far. And I got a good one here. Every presenter so far, we've actually sent the book Better Than You Think from Robert Commodari. And one thing I asked him, I didn't even have to beg him. I just said, yo, can you do me a favor, spend 30 minutes with us, sharing a bit of a message from your book? And he was like, hell yeah, let's do it. So I'm honored and privileged to have Rob on the show and be able to share some of his expertise, his passion. It's something I'm going to keep talking about there from what he does. I've known Rob for probably 4 or 5 years now, working with your family and extended family as well, cousins of Amanda, etc. The wife, the whole deal. So I know you on a personal basis. And we talked about this, talking about coaching and coaches and how it impacts kids and all these other things. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Not only have we talked about this sitting in the stands or after a game or just getting a chance to have a steak or so, whatever. Now to get a chance to share to this platform, I think it's going to be awesome. So I will give everybody, say this again at the end as well, Rob. But if anybody has any questions about self-confidence or just needs a lift up kind of thing, you're a good guy to send an email to or send a text or a call, and you are somebody that gets back to them instantly. So I applaud you for that. So that being said, I know you got an awesome presentation, and anybody watching, he has that gadget right there in front of him on his left shoulder. And I am interested, after doing thousands of these, whether they're podcast presentations or online, am interested in seeing what's going on. I've been hyped up about this. So Kevin told me about it, and we're ready to rock and roll. So Rob, take it from here, my man, and I'm looking forward to taking notes, buddy.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everybody. And Kevin, thanks for taking care of technology here. It's always a challenge for some of us, and I'm one of the more challenged guys when it comes to technology. So anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to do this today. And I got to make one quick disclaimer. Giving you this information or sharing this information, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, but I'm a guy who's read about 900 books over the last 30 years on personal growth, self-development, and psychology and spirituality and all that. So I'm passionate about this. I'm passionate about reading. I'm passionate about learning. I'm passionate about personal growth. And I think it's something everybody should dive into at some point in their lives. And so what I want to talk to you today about, more or less, is self-confidence and self-esteem. And for the next 20 or 30 minutes, we're going to dive into this topic, and we're going to talk to you, the trainers and coaches, to you as individuals, to you as business owners, and to the clients or students that you're training and teaching along the way. So we're going to do that. That's part one. Part two is what's broken down our self-confidence and our self-esteem, what's broken it down over the years, and then how do we build it back up? So, and we'll finish with that, and then any questions you guys might have, you can always reach out to me. We'll talk about that a little later. So what got me started on this whole self-confidence, self-esteem thing, it was about 9 months ago or so. I was contemplating a change in my business. I'm a real estate agent by trade. I've been doing it for 20 years, and I was contemplating a change. And I was struggling with it. I was like, should I or shouldn't I? Am I worthy of it or am I not worthy of it? Am I confident I can do this or am I insecure about it? So where was I with that? And I was stressing out about it because I've got it good where I'm at, and I'm like, should I make the change or shouldn't I? So I got on the phone with a friend of mine one day, and we were talking about this possible change. And I said to him, he goes, Rob, are you a confident guy? He goes, I picture you as a really confident guy. And I said, you know what? I'm confident that I can do anything I put my mind to. I'm really confident in it. Now, I'm not confident in dunking a ball at 5'8", but I'm confident that I can do whatever I set my mind to. And then I thought about, as Rob mentioned, I wrote a book not too long ago, and I was confident in the material that I had, but I didn't think I was worthy of it. I was like, when I first started writing 14 years ago, yeah, clue, it took me 14 years to write the book. But when I first started writing 14 years ago, I'm like, who am I to think that I can write a book? Who am I to think somebody's going to be interested in what I have to say? Am I worthy enough? Am I good enough? And those are the questions I started asking myself. And so I'm going back to the conversation with this guy about 9 months ago. He said, there is a difference between self-confidence and self-esteem. And then I thought about this whole, I don't know if anybody's familiar with it out there, but Jim Rohn, he's an inspirational speaker, motivational speaker, and he's been a mentor of mine for years. And unfortunately, he passed away some 10 years ago or so. But he had a line, a quote, and he said, you will double your self-esteem, or you will double your income as fast as you double your self-esteem. And I thought about that. Now, does it necessarily have to be just doubling of your income? Could it be doubling of your confidence? Could it be doubling of a skill? Could it be doubling of something else? And I just focusing on the income part. Like I said, I've been in this business 20 years. And when you start early on, it's easy to go from $10,000 to $20,000 a year. It's easy to go from 20 to 40, maybe 40, 80, or 80 to 160. But then as the numbers start to climb, it's harder to double. So I do very well in real estate, and I've done very well over the years, but I haven't doubled over the last so many years. So I got to think about, why haven't I? Now, you could just say it's the law of averages, or for myself, I just wanted to dive into this a little more. And I'm like, maybe I got confidence. I got a lot of confidence, but maybe, just maybe, I don't have the self-esteem that I thought I had. And I'm like, let me dig into that a little more. So I started journaling. I started thinking about it and reading about it more. And I came up with what I came up with. I'm going to share with you right now over the next 15, 20 more minutes or so. So I want to speak to you, trainers and coaches, as business owners. I want to start with that. And let me say this real quick. The whole COVID thing has brought a lot of isolation on, a lot of depression on. And I believe, even though COVID is the big pandemic and it's caused a lot of loss of life and loss of income, I think it's caused like the depression and isolation. And I think it's really affected people's self-worth. And that, I believe, is a bigger pandemic than the one we're hearing about every day. So I want to start with, like I said, the business part of it. So as you see here on my piece of paper here, my little overhead gadget here. Some of you haven't seen any of this, seen this before on the Zoom things or these GoToWebinar, these little podcasts. So I'm gonna do a little sketching here for you. So as a business owner, this is about getting other people to trust us. Okay, you want the kids, the students, the parents to trust you as business owners. Well, what's the best way to build your business in this market or in your business? I like to think about building my business by referral. So a person is only going to trust you based on your character and your competence. So character is who you are. Competence is what you know. So if you guys are in business, right? You're in a business, you have this business of coaching and training. If you're a person of high character, but maybe you have a low self-esteem, or maybe you don't feel, you have low competence. You just got into business of coaching and training. So you're a person of high character, but you don't know the business well. You will still get some business because of your character. If you're a person of high competence and have terrible bedside manner, but you get things done, you know what you're talking about, you will still get some referrals. But when you have a high character and a high competence level, it will rain all day long for your business. And that's kind of where you want to go. But this is about getting others to trust us. My question is, how can we get others to trust us if we really don't know how much we trust ourselves? We can only give what we have or what we are. So if I'm not 100% confident in myself, how can I give you 100% of that? So the next phase is trusting ourselves. And for me, that comes down to what level, and I'm just going to use the initials SC and SE. That comes down to the level of our self-confidence and our level of self-esteem. So self-confidence is a trust in your abilities. And self-esteem takes the word confidence in your worth. Am I worthy and what my abilities are? So do I have confidence in my ability to dribble a basketball? Yes. Do I have confidence in my ability to dunk a basketball? No. That should not affect my self-esteem. So did I feel worthy of writing that book? I felt confident in the sense that, hey, I had all these years of knowledge, all this education, all these books I've read. I had the confidence, but I didn't have the feeling of worth. As I said earlier, I didn't think I was good enough, smart enough, or thought anybody was going to be interested in even reading the stuff I had. So once we trust ourselves, then we exude that confidence, we exude that higher level of self-esteem. Then we get others to trust us based on our character and our competence. But it all goes for naught if we don't take, and I'm going to write this down here, if we don't trust God and the abilities and the gifts that he's given us. So you may or may not have heard about the parable of the talents, and we can talk about that later if you have a question about it, but you're giving gifts and abilities. You're giving these gifts and abilities, and it's up to us to dive into them. It's up to us to learn about them and know them and make them better. But God also gives us this heart and this feeling like how he wants us to feel worthy of doing this, not entitled, but worthy. So if we trust God and what he's given us, and we have a high self-confidence and a high self-esteem, we'll get others to trust us, then your business is going to grow off the charts. And that's what you want. So that's your business. And then it comes down, you take the same piece, the business up here, this is about the personal self. And then you can take this and apply it to your students or your clients or the players or the athletes. Do you recognize in them their ability? Do you recognize in them if they feel worthy enough, or if they're having a low self-esteem moment? I think it's our responsibility. We're not the psychologist, we're not the doctor, we're not the parent. But when we have those kids in our arena, I think it's important for us to recognize if something's going on. And then we can have a conversation with somebody else later, but it's not our job to fix it. I think it's our job to maybe recognize it. So that said, I'm going to take you to my next little diagram here. So we're talking about self-confidence and self-esteem. Okay, you can either have a high level of self-confidence, you can have a low level of self-confidence. You can have a high level of self-esteem or low level of self-esteem. So down here, what I worry about sometimes for people is I'm going to write this word humility here. Okay, and over here, I'm going to write this word ego here, because ego can come into play here, and I'm going to write this word arrogance up here. So we understand what self-confidence is. We understand that self-esteem is about how we feel about ourselves. So what I think the struggle, the pandemic comes into play down here. So how we can work on this, and we can work on this. This is more, I think, more natural. This is more emotional or mental. So to have a high self-esteem, it's just positive self-talk. It's putting the positive energy in, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, about restoring it, and how do we pick up the self-confidence. But what I want to emphasize here is I think there could be a very fine line right here between a low self-esteem and humility. So as a coach, you could be lining up the kids to do a drill, and there's going to be the kid that says, let's everybody go first. And maybe that kid has a high self-confidence in the sense that I'm good, I can do this, I'm going to let others go first. And again, there's this thing about this self-esteem and humility. So humility is thinking of others, putting others first. A low self-worth is thinking less of yourself. So thinking less of yourself in a sense where I'm not worthy, and thinking of others first is more of a humility piece. So that kid lines up, he lets everybody else go in front of him because he's like, I got this, I'm confident what my ability is, but I'm going to let everybody else go first. Or is that kid saying, I'm going last because I don't feel worthy of this. I'm going last because I think I stink. And they don't want to be the first one out there. So I think kids battle with this, and I've seen it as a coach myself. I've seen it in my own kids sometimes. I've seen it in other kids where they just don't have the confidence just to get out there and go. So I think if we think of others first in the sense that, hey, let others have a shot versus thinking less of ourselves, we walk a fine line there. And I think it's great to live a life of humility, but I don't want to live a life of low self-esteem. So we're going to talk about how to build that up in a couple minutes. On the other hand, over here, there's an ego thing we have to deal with. Now, everybody knows we talk about confidence. That person's got a high level of confidence. And if they have a high level of confidence, and I'm going to switch back and forth here for you. Probably should have been doing it already. So if we have a high level of self-confidence, we could borderline on this ego thing. And if we have a high ego, people would say, hey, maybe it borders on the side of arrogance. Like I'm thinking too much of myself. And I was listening to a podcast one day, And the gentleman by the name of Jay Shetty was on there. He's talking to Ed Milet. And he talked about this thing of the lower ego down here. And I'm like, what is a lower ego? I always thought of ego up here. I never thought of it as down here. So what does that mean? Say Rob's coaching, he's training his kids today, and they're all in great shape. And somebody comes up to Rob and says, man, all your players I ever coach, they're always in great shape and they never get hurt. You do such a great job. And then Rob goes, well, I don't know, I'm just lucky, you know, I'm just lucky, or you know, I could do better, something to that effect. That's kind of like a low ego comment. Or you say to a woman, man, you look great. Nah, I don't have enough makeup on, or I need makeup to look better, my hair's out of whack. That's a low ego statement. So a low ego statement comes from a low self-esteem feeling. So low ego and low self-esteem, I think, are connected. So when like if I do a presentation, somebody says, Rob, you did a great job. I'm like, nah, I missed my points. I missed 3 points, forgot all about them. That's hard. They don't know that. So it's a low self-esteem or low ego comment. So it's important that we know, you know, what other people maybe think. What they don't know. I guess it's important, what they don't know. And we want to do better at not having this negative self-talk, which is about a low ego. So I hope all that makes sense. And now I'm going to get into what's broken this down. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to talk about here is the breakdown, or what's broken us down, let's put it that way, in the self-confidence and self-esteem arenas. Okay. So self-confidence, which breaks you down in your self-confidence, what affects your confidence is you might just have a lack of experience. Okay, no big deal. If I have a lack of experience, then I'm not going to have a high level of self-confidence in there. Or, you know, you might say your natural ability. Okay, if I'm 300 pounds, I'm certainly not going to be a jockey. I think you would agree with that. So my ability, my natural ability to be somebody who's heavier, bigger, taller, as opposed to somebody who's 5'2", 120 pounds and being a jockey. So what's your natural ability? What's your natural capability? What can you work with within yourself? And then maybe past or poor performance, okay? If you've performed poorly over the years, over and over and over again, okay, if I've taken 3-point shots in my basketball game and I hit 1 out of 30, well, my confidence in shooting 3-pointers isn't going to be that good. Should that affect my self-esteem? No, it shouldn't. I just don't have confidence in my ability to shoot the 3-pointer. So then on the other side of it, what breaks down our self-esteem? You may live in a critical environment. In other words, you may be around people that are always critical of you. You may be around negative friends all the time. I don't want to be around negative friends all the time, but you may be. You could have medical problems or trauma in your life. Like you might have, you could have back problems, chronic back problems for a year, and it just doesn't make you feel good about yourself. You're always injured. You're always hurting. You're always in pain. That could affect you. You could have your body image. You know, this is big. I mean, it's bigger for women, I think, but it affects guys too. And I'm going to talk about this in a second as well. If I don't feel like I have this chiseled physique, then I might not feel worthy of myself. Then, you know, you might, the way you feel about yourself, the money you have, the athletic prowess that you have, you know, that might affect your self-esteem. So then the other thing, you might be involved in abusive relationships along the way. If you're involved in abusive relationships, that's going to impact your self-esteem. The one big thing that I think affects people's self-esteem is they have these unrealistic goals. Now, I'm a goal guy and I set goals, but if we set these, I mean, people tell me think big all the time, and I'm a fan of thinking big, but if I'm thinking big, too big, and I'm not achieving the goals and I'm never hitting, I start to beat myself up. I'm like, why do I even set these goals? Because I can't even hit them. And that can affect your self-esteem as well. And what I'll finish with this on the breakdown is this. there's three lies that we buy into all the time. And the three lies are the lie of the bedroom, the billfold, and the ball field. And that's about the bedroom, the billfold, and the ball field. If I'm a guy, I can get girls at will. If I have money, everybody's going to like me. And if I'm athletic, I'm powerful, people are going to see me as something special. On the woman's side, it's the image, it's the way they dress, it's their material belongings. These are three lies we buy into. And one of the things to be aware of when you're coaching or you have these kids or these athletes with you, there's signs to watch for in a self-esteem issue. Are they always saying, I'm sorry? Are they doing things excessively to please others? Like, are they always taking people out and buying them lunch, so they like you, on and on and on? Are you hanging around people, or is that person always in a negative self-talk mode? When they are, that's a sure sign of it all. So, Rob, I think I got a few more minutes here. What I'm going to finish up here is, how do we restore our self-confidence and self-esteem? How do we build it up? Okay. In a way, three things on the self-confidence piece I think are very self-explanatory, very easy to think about, but maybe we don't do enough of this. Number one, we need to reflect on our achievements or our accomplishments. Sometimes we don't reflect enough on what we've done and what we've accomplished. Some of us are just doers. We do, and what's next? What's next? What's next? But you have to take time to reflect. We have to lean into our strengths and abilities. Lean into them. Know what they are. Like I said, God gave you these talents. God gave you these abilities. Lean into them, and that's going to help build your confidence. And one of the things I put here, maybe set small goals to begin with. If you're struggling with confidence, set some small goals and just get them little by little. As you achieve these things little by little, you will build your confidence. On the self-esteem side, it's about appreciating who you are. Who are you? Appreciate those gifts, appreciate those talents. Big thing here, stop comparing and competing. As athletes, as business people, most of us, we do it all day long. We compare and compete with others. Is there a healthy competition to compete with others? Absolutely. I'm an athlete myself. I played college baseball. But who we should be comparing and competing with more than anybody else is our natural gifts and abilities. When we compare with what we have, what we are doing to what we have, if you're not meeting it, then that's where you compare and compete. And the more you compare and compete with yourself and your natural abilities, the higher you're going to go, the more you're going to accomplish, the more confidence you're going to have, the more self-esteem you're going to have. And at that point, the world becomes your oyster. You can do whatever you want. You also got to challenge the negative self-talk. Challenge the negative talk. If you have constant negative self-talk, stop it. Very simple. There's a meme out there, and you just stop it. So if I start talking to myself negative, Rob, stop it. Or if I hear Rob talking to himself negative, Rob, just stop it. I don't hear it. Just stop it. So affirmation. Here, I'm going to finish up with three key things here, 3 or 4 things, and we'll wrap this up. So affirmations, meditation, journaling. And I'll put reading here. So when we read the good stuff's going to be in our head. Read that good stuff's coming out. Affirmations. I do affirmations every day. And an affirmation is an I am statement. So you say, I am beautiful, I'm courageous, I am diligent, I'm efficient, I'm fun, I'm giving, I'm happy. I am. That's an affirmation. I can go into that at a deeper level another time, but it's always good to do these affirmations. Meditation. I think we're so busy and our minds are so cluttered that we got all this stuff going in our heads that we don't take time to quiet down. And when we quiet down and we get stuff out of our heads, it allows us to reflect more, to appreciate more who we are. And then we go on and we live a higher self-confidence and self-esteem life. The big thing here, this is the biggest thing for me, and that's been the journaling. So you could have all this anxiety and all this stress in your life, and it's jammed up inside your head. And what'll happen is you're distracted by all this stuff that's in your head. So I've been journaling for a lot of years, and as guys, we might think it's a weakness or a female thing to journal. I can tell you this: you journal. What happens? You get the stuff out of your head, and you get it on the paper. And when you see it on paper, you can understand better what you're going through, what you're struggling with, and you get it out of your head. And now you don't have this tension anymore. The tension, it removes itself, and it allows the good stuff to come in. And when the good stuff come in, you're going to live a more fulfilling life. So I'm going to finish with this last piece here, and I call it the circle of confidence. You good, Rob? Are you good?
Yes, sir, man. Knock it out of the park here, man.
So the circle of confidence. How do I build my confidence? Well, first of all, you got to have an idea. Okay, we got to have an idea. Once you have an idea, you got to take action. You take action, you're going to succeed or you're going to fail. But in that process, you're going to learn a lesson. Okay? So now, idea leads to action. You succeed or fail, you learn a lesson. But in that process, you've developed a skill. And once you develop that skill, you develop confidence. So it's idea, action, succeed or fail, learn a lesson. Now you have a new skill, you develop confidence, and it just goes on and on and on. So to bring it all to conclusion, it's more or less, to me, about awareness. Awareness, I wrote this book, Better Than You Think, as you see behind me, and it's about awareness. Are you aware of your level of self-confidence? Are you aware of your level of self-esteem? And knowing where you are with it, if you make a low self-esteem comment, or a low self-confident comment, just be aware that you did it and then tell yourself, stop it. And then learn to put the good stuff in, the meditation, work on your strengths and abilities, journal, read, and then you can have the life you want and you can live the fulfilling life you want, and then the world can be your oyster. Rob, Kevin, thanks so much for having me on here today. Appreciate your time. And I look forward, if anybody has any questions, you can reach out to me at Rob at robcommodariauthor.com, or you can go on Amazon and pick that book up if you like.
Rob, man, awesome. I was actually taking notes. One big thing I think people can take away, and we can expand on this, maybe another presentation, or if someone brings you in to talk or get you on the phone, email, whatever. Athletes in particular, self-talk is one of the biggest things that derails their success. Confidence, or I can pull my shoulders back and walk into a court or into a field and make you think that I'm more confident, but what's going through your head? You talk to yourself more than anybody else. And the words you put into your own mind, I think, ingrains a pattern of thinking. And if you can have positive thoughts and perceive positive outcomes, more than likely the success rate is going to go up. So you and I have talked about that many, many times, just watching body language of individuals at practice and trying to really get them to make practice part of the experience. So when they get to game day, their habits can shine through, and not the other way. When you get to game day, all of a sudden magic happens. It doesn't work that way. You've got to practice positive things going on in your life all the way around you. So when it gets intense, good things can happen, and you can allow the outcomes to shine for themselves. But man, again, great message. I've obviously read the book, and I'm hoping that other people will read the book as well. Again, if they reach out to you, I'm sure they could do a team deal or whatever else, and you can sign a copy and all those types of things that really cool and engaged authors do. And I know you've done that for me, and I'm sure you would do that playing forward. But I would encourage everybody to get the book. And then if you get a chance and read a chapter or 2 or 12, reach out to Rob and have more questions. Kevin, do you have anything to follow up or want to touch on?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Rob, for presenting today. Awesome stuff. I got a ton of notes, and I can't leave this without asking, because you're someone who's read 900 books on growth, and sticking with your theme of self-esteem and self-confidence, we're just going to throw Better Than You Think in your top 3 for sure. But what would the other 2 be if you had to name like a kind of a top 3 on growth?
Yeah, I got to tell you, the first book I read in July of 1990, it changed the trajectory of my life, was The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. And it wasn't just about selling, it was about becoming the best you could be. That's my number 1 all-time favorite book right there. I should put the Bible in front of that, but as far as the personal growth trajectory, that was it. That's number 1. Number 2, I got to tell you, man, there's so many of them. There's I think of The Untethered Soul as one. I think of Virtual Leadership as another. And there's so many. I'm in my room right now. I'm looking at all these books. I'm like, gosh, what are some of my favorites in here? But those, I'll give you those for starters.
Fantastic. Well, this is great content. Looking forward to reading your book. This is my first exposure to it. I'm late in the game, but I really appreciate the information that you shared here. And I know that's going to be of value to our coaches. So thank you for paying it forward.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys. Have a nice day, man. Take care.
Thank you for your time, Rob. See you, man.
Take care, guys.